Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. Today we'll be looking at a new microbrand watch called the Kaal Multiverse Sol. Kaal is a microbrand fresh out of Singapore, which appears to now be an incubator for a lot of interesting microbrands. Kaal is launching their debut line of watches on Kickstarter called the Multiverse Series, that is drawing inspiration from the cosmos, with their three watches Gaia, Sol, and Artem. These watches will launch at 369 and 399 US dollars, which is in the affordable category for conversation pieces such as these. I'm always excited to see creative and artistic watch designs, so I'm happy to share this with you today. The Kickstarter campaign is scheduled to launch in the end of September 2020, and the watches are expected to ship out between March and April 2021. Let's check it out. The case was designed to continue the space theme with its flying saucer design that combines a rounded silhouette with an oversized dome enclosure. The case is 42mm in diameter, 47mm from lug to lug, and 19mm in height. The whole case has a somewhat elliptical footprint with unobtrusive lugs that continue this rounded aesthetic. The lugs are patterned with a streak that resembles a meteor flying across the sky. The lugs are not drilled through and have an interesting star engraved plate instead. I'm not sure how I feel about this, and I think I would have preferred drilled through lugs instead. Above the lower case section sits a massive mid-case or bezel that supports the roughly 6mm double dome sapphire crystal. There is a loomed crown which is signed with the brand's logo and has an interesting and comfortable knurling pattern that makes the crown easy to grip and operate. The crown is well designed and I didn't notice any crown or stem wobble. The crown does not screw into the case. The case back continues the space theme and has a solar system design engraved onto the flat case back, with a small exhibition window that gives you a glance at the Seiko NH35 movement below it. I think this is a very nice case back design. The watch is rated for only 30 meters of water resistance, but that shouldn't come as a surprise given the design. Let's talk about the dial. There's a lot going on, so I'm going to deconstruct it piece by piece, working my way from the chapter ring to the solar hemisphere at the center. According to the press release, there are plenty of changes that are scheduled to be made, so I will point them out wherever relevant. The first element that catches your eye is the stainless steel crossbar that spans across the center of the watch. The finishing on this bar is alright, but I did notice some damages to the screw and near it. Of course, this is a prototype and that is to be expected, but since this is the most visible object on the dial, Kaal must ensure that the finishing of this crossbar is held to the highest standards on the production units. The next piece, and arguably the most important for telling the time, is the fixed chapter ring that is entirely loomed with C3 superluminova. The chapter ring has a triangle marker at the 12 o'clock position and numbered increments of 5 and dot markers for the minutes and seconds. The printing on this is good and I couldn't find any faults here. The next element is the aventurine base of the dial that creates the sparkling starry night sky in which these elements exist. Aventurine is a very difficult material to photograph properly, but this does look beautiful in person. Above the aventurine base sits what is effectively the hour hand by means of a rotating transparent disc that has the loomed hour numerals printed on it. This appears to be a very thin, almost sticker-like layer. I personally wish they had chosen a more subtle font for the hour disc, but this one does match the aesthetic of the logo and the chapter ring. The next element is the minute hand or star that orbits the solar hemisphere. The star is loomed and can be read in reference to the chapter ring, like on a regular watch. According to the press release, the star will be made much larger and will completely hide the base stem. It will also be colored red for more easy visibility. I've seen a render of that, and if they do execute it correctly, I think it'll look much better than it does now. We then have a seconds hand or orb that is currently positioned almost perpendicular to the base of the dial and is a bit small. This element is generously loomed, but is difficult to see during the day given its small size and alignment. However, this is being drastically changed for the production units with a much larger size that is also better aligned for more visibility. The last piece of the dial is the solar hemisphere that sits at the center of the swatch with its turbulent solar surface. This element is very red with hints of yellow and orange, but I've been informed that this will be made mostly orange for the production units, and I definitely agree with that decision. The finishing across the dial on this prototype is good. Apart from the scuffs on the crossbar, I don't really have any quality control misgivings. I would have preferred to see a different font on the dial, but that's really the only thing I would change that isn't already going to be changed. The Multiverse Sol, just like our very own night sky, is best appreciated in the dark. This watch then comes alive with the textured surface of the solar hemisphere, reflecting the incident light, subtly revealing its chaotic surface. The chapter ring, seconds orb, and minute star are the brightest elements here, adequately filled and printed with C3 superluminova. The hour numerals seem to have a very fine layer of lume and hence don't hold their charge as well as the rest of the watch, but overall, This watch puts on quite a show in the dark, and if you're wearing this at a social gathering that has poor lighting, it is certainly going to be a conversation starter. This watch uses a Seiko NH35, and for the $369 to $399 Kickstarter price, this is more than reasonable. By now we are all quite familiar with this movement, so I won't bother with the details, and I'll jump right to the performance. I logged the accuracy of this watch over a 3-day period and observed roughly minus 10 seconds per day. As you might have already guessed, this watch is pretty tall, with a 19mm height, but every other dimension is quite reasonable, even for medium-sized wrists. The 42mm case has a 47mm lug-to-lug width, but it doesn't look too bad on my 6¼ inch wrist. The case back is flat, so the watch does sit low on the wrist, helping it balance the big dome above it. It's a bit on the heavier side for a dress watch, coming in at around 115 grams on the leather strap. I will just conservatively assume that this watch is not going to be your everyday piece, and for the occasional event, this watch is actually quite comfortable, given what it looks like. I was expecting it to feel like a snow globe strapped to my wrist, but the weight is well distributed, and the dimensions are actually quite reasonable. This watch ships with a 22mm Horween leather strap. The strap is quite thick and will require some breaking in, but appears to be of good quality with a stamped buckle. To wrap things up, I think this is a very interesting watch that is breaking some new ground in the affordable conversation piece watch market. I have somewhat of a conservative taste for watches, so this isn't the kind of watch I would typically wear, but I have enjoyed spending time with it, and you can be assured there's never a dull moment when wearing this watch. You often come across some watches that just lack depth and engaging aesthetics. This isn't one of them. The well-designed loomed elements make this watch even more interesting in the dark. If Kaal is able to make the changes that they've proposed, I think this will be quite an appealing watch to those that want an eccentric occasion piece in their collection. I also suspect that their Gaia variant will be the most popular, given the well-balanced colors and the strong connection to home. Let me know what you think of this watch in the comment section, and thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to read the full-length review in the link below.